Thanks for doing this. I'm sure you knew it was coming, but obviously you've been on both sides. But in this 1 year, coming over right away and seeing all those kids that you recruited, just how weird is this going to be? Being in this rivalry again, but seeing all the other kids now being on the other side.
Well, I think that, for me, I just try to pull on past experiences, and I've had this experience before, coming from the College of Charleston. When we played the College of Charleston, when I was the head coach at Clemson, I had to experience that, just being in the other dugout and playing against a group of kids that you love, and coaching against a program that you love being a part of. So I've had that experience before. It's a little bit weird before the game starts just because, as you go into the ballpark or they come into your ballpark, you see the kids and you just remember recruiting them, you remember coaching them and just being there with them through good times and through bad times and all those special moments that you spend together. So it's really about the people more than the opponent. But once the game starts, look, it's about our team versus their team. It's about our players versus their players, and that kind of goes away. And it's about the competition at that point. So I think really the only weird, I don't know if weird is necessarily the right word. The thing that makes it different is just the relationships, the close relationships and the bonds that you've had with those kids that you coached at your previous stops.
Monty, you mentioned the emotion about it. How personally do you kind of handle those emotions going into a game, and is it easier said than done in the pregame leading up to it, seeing all those guys and probably talking with them?
Well, I think ultimately it's not going to be about me. I mean, it's going to be about our team and what I'm trying to do to help prepare our guys for a tough series. I think that's my priority and my focus. But ultimately, look, I've been blessed to coach hundreds upon hundreds of kids over the course of my career as a coach. I got into coaching to make a difference in young people's lives and to develop relationships with them and try to help them grow in this game and see them have success. To me, it's just the amount of relationships that I've had because of this game are something that's probably more special to me than anything. So, again, when I see those kids, it's about the relationships that I have with them. How much I care for them as people, even though we're playing against them, right? And again, so for me, that's what it's all about. It's just about the relationships with the kids. But, again, once the game starts and, it comes to the competition part, again, it's about their players, versus our players, and it's about the competition. It's about the opportunity for both programs and both coaching staffs to be a part of the greatest rivalry in college baseball. It's special. Every pitch of this rivalry weekend is special to the coaches and to the players, and it means a lot to the state of South Carolina. So just to be a part of it is a special thing.
Kind of stepping away from Clemson for a second, just kind of talking about this offense this year. What have you kind of liked so far? What have you not liked? And where do you kind of evaluate the progress so far as you try to build this identity?
Well, I think if you look at our offense, I feel like we've done a lot of great things. We came into the year feeling like we needed to be an offense that grinded out at bats, that found ways to get on base by any means necessary. And I think our guys have done a very good job of that. We're certainly not perfect, and we're certainly still evolving. But ultimately, you look at our run production over the course of 9 games. We're in the top 5 to 10 in just about every offensive category in the country. Plate discipline's a big deal in our program, and our guys have done a tremendous job of staying in the strike zone, taking our walks, taking our HBPs. We wanted to be tougher. We wanted to send a message that we were going to be tougher when it comes to, finding any way that we can to get on base. And I think our guys have done that. We've hit for power. Didn't know what level of power we would hit for this year, but up to this point, we've done a good job of hitting the ball out of the ballpark. Would like for us to be a little bit better situationally with runners in scoring position, but oftentimes when you start talking about those types of things, I have found it typically works against you. So if you start talking about we need to do a better job of this and we need to do a better job of that, oftentimes that puts more pressure on your players to perform in those situations. I think you just have to continuously work on the things that you want to be good at, and you have to continuously praise your players when they have success. If there's any lessons that I've learned over my years, constantly praising your players for the things they're doing a good job of, continues to keep the ball rolling in the right direction. Consistency is my main priority with our team. It's about being the same guy with the same thought process and the same messages every single day, regardless of how the team is performing. And we expect our players to be even keel and consistent every single day, whether they had a bad day or a good day. And, I think I expect the same out of myself. And our guys have done a tremendous job of that up to this point. So I've been very pleased with how they've done.
From a scouting report side, how beneficial is having such intimate knowledge of those guys? And I imagine you started looking at least a little bit of film. Have you noticed anything evolve or change a whole lot up there in terms of how they play?
Well, scouting reports are, I don't know if I would say they're overrated or underrated. I think the bottom line is you present the information that you see and that you know about your opponent, and it's up to the players to execute. The players have to execute the plan that you give them. So even though I may know a decent amount about their team, our pitchers still have to execute pitches, and our hitters still have to execute it against their pitchers. And we also know that look, things do change. Pitchers, they're trying to execute a plan to get the hitter out to pitch to the hitter's weakness. So scouting reports sometimes can be overrated. They're certainly overrated if the player doesn't execute the plan. It's way more important that the player understands the plan and can execute it for the scouting report to be successful.
Go back, Mike. Hey, Monty. Back to your time at Clemson, you've had to have this one circled on your calendar for a while. I mean, I know that you say that it's not about you, but I mean, I'm sure you're getting reminded from, fans, friends, maybe family as well. Just, how do you deal with that, number one? And number two, when you're on the field on Friday night up there, there's going to be a lot of nostalgia for you too, I would imagine.
Again, I just use my past experiences. That's what I've always tried to draw everything from, is my experiences that I've had over the years. You get those pregame jitters when you go into the ballpark, and I'm sure that, for me personally, I'll probably feel a little bit of that getting off the bus and going into the ballpark. I am human. I'll remember all the great times that I had there. It kind of brings back, all the great memories, that I had while coaching at Clemson. But I've always been able to put all of that aside once the game starts. I mean, I try to remain pretty calm during the game. Obviously, my job is to cheer on the players and try to coach the players during the game. And I feel like I can put those things, to the side and just focus on the game at hand. And it just takes time, right? I mean, it just takes over the years of just doing it. We all have to remind ourselves that coaches, once the game starts, we're pretty dang overrated. The players are the ones playing. We really don't do a whole lot, during the game in terms of how the outcome of the game goes. Again, whatever decisions we make, whatever plan we have, it's about the players executing it. So, my role is going to be to try to help them execute the plan to win a game, and I think I'll be okay. Once the game starts, it'll be like most games, it's the competition and the heat of the battle between the lines.
Hi, Coach. You talk so much about how, with your experiences, this is how you're going to handle the emotions, but a lot of the Clemson transfers on South Carolina's team haven't had those experiences yet. How do you kind of convey how your approach is, very mature? How do you convey that to your players when they head up there this weekend? We
just need to be calm, cool, and collected. And just do everything we can to control our emotions. I mean, I think that's the key. It's just, and that starts in batting practice. It's just, whatever our approach is going to be in that game, we want to make sure that we game plan that in our practice routine and we get a feel for the ballpark. But we try to be as loose as we possibly can and as calm as we possibly can, because we know, once the national anthem starts and their starting pitcher goes out there, the emotions are gonna rise a little bit, and guys tend to overthrow and guys tend to overswing, and that adrenaline gets going. But once you get through the first inning and things tend to kind of calm down a little bit. That all that stress, anxiety, and adrenaline, tends to wear down just a little bit, and the guys, tend to play their game. And I think the key for us is just don't let the moment become too big. Just stay calm, prepare, understand what we're trying to do, and just execute the game plan. I think typically the teams that try to do too much, it backfires, on them in games like this. It's just play your game.
To your left, no.
Coach, you mentioned earlier this is the greatest rivalry in college baseball. Can you just talk a little bit more about what this rivalry means to you?
This is my 7th year at South Carolina as an assistant coach, and I had 7 years as a head coach at Clemson. So, once this weekend's over, just imagine, someone from the state of South Carolina just being able to say that they've been able to coach, 14 series, I guess, in the rivalry over the course of their career. It's just, it's very humbling. And it's something that I'm very proud of, and quite honestly, just to be a part of it on both sides of it. So sometimes you just have to pinch yourself that, God put you in this position. Just very grateful for the opportunities that I have had personally, and just to be a part of it's been very, very special to me.
Money, you've had 3 different leadoff hitters to start the year, Carson, then Tal, and Will last night. Where do you guys feel like you are in evaluating that spot, and what did you see from Will especially last night?
Well, Will gave us 2 really good at-bats last night. Obviously led off the game with an opposite field home run, and had a 2-strike double later in the ball game, or extra base hit. I can't remember if it was a double or a triple, but juiced the ball to left center field in a 0-2 count on a hanging breaking ball against their best reliever. So I think he's shown the ability. Will's shown the ability to have high leverage at bats. Is he a true leadoff guy? I don't know. We've been using Carson there, Hornig, and look, Hornig's an on-base machine type guy. We just need to get him going a little bit, and I think he will. Sometimes with all these guys, the ball just has to go through the hoop in that role for them to, get it going, and I think Carson certainly will. I think it'll be probably dependent upon the matchup, who we're facing each game, as we try to determine, who is the best guy to put in the leadoff spot on that given day. I think, by the end of this weekend going into SEC play, as we get closer to that, I think we need to, we probably feel like we'll have a much better feel for, who we need to put where and how we need to go about doing it. But right now we're probably going to experiment a little bit until we find that right guy for that spot.
On Friday, going back to Doug Kingsmore, what kind of reception do you think you'll receive from the Clemson fans as you look back at your time there, your relationship with them? How do you think they'll greet you?
Well, who knows, right? I have no idea. I just I've always tried to live by a very simple principle. I try to treat people the way that I would want to be treated. And, the people at Clemson were great to me, have many great relationships there with a lot of people. And, if I get a chance to say hello to them while I'm there, I'd love to. But ultimately, it's about me going up there trying to help our team win a ball game and prepare for the Clemson Tigers. And so my responsibility and focus is going to be on our team. But, there's a lot of people. Look, just like when I came here as the head coach at Clemson, there's so many people that I had great relationships here. When I was assistant coach, every time we play here, they'd come by and say hello. It makes you feel good, right? We're all human. But it just the idea of, just having good relationships everywhere, and that matters a lot to me. So if I have the opportunity to say hello to some folks who I know from Clemson, I certainly will. But my primary focus is just going to be, trying to help our guys go up there and play our best baseball in a tough environment against a good club.
I'm going to go way off topic with you. You've got 3 guys from Chapin who are all playing a big role on your pitching staff. Mm-hmm. College of Charleston has one down there as well. 4 guys on the same pitching staff. What does that say about that team? And you've been in the state for a long time,
mm-hmm.
going back to your Lugoff days. Have you seen something like that particularly often?
I don't know if I have. That's a great question. When you look at the guys, that we have that are pitching at the end of the ball games, for us that are from Chapin, along with Privet down at C of C. Just to have that amount of arm talent out of one high school, out of one area, says an awful lot. It also says an awful lot about the coaching staff at Chapin High School and their ability to develop pitching. I think that's certainly an impressive thing to look at. And I know King mentioned that the other day in one of our meetings, and I hadn't really thought about it up until that point. So, that's a pretty impressive thing to think about, that all those talented arms and guys that can really pitch came out of one high school.
What have you seen from Cassis so far this season, as well as the other transfers?
Well, Gavin has been tremendous for us. He obviously, the one thing that stands out obviously is the power, but he also has shown great plate discipline and the ability to lay off pitches. He takes his walks, so he gets on base a lot, but he is a threat. And the thing that has stood out to me about him most recently is the 2-strike hits. He's had some big 2-strike hits. I mean, had a big 2-strike hit yesterday, had a big 2-strike hit against Penn, hit a 2-strike homer. He's just done a really good job with 2 strikes. He's not just a guy that that is up there trying to hit home runs. We feel like Gavin is a complete hitter. He also works harder than anybody in the locker room when it comes to his swing. I mean, the guy is in the cages nonstop, just trying to consistently work on his craft and get better and better every single day. He's a hitting nut. McGillis has been phenomenal, another guy that works very, very hard. McGillis has a veteran mindset. He's very, very mature, very smart young man, maximizes his ability. Caleb Denny's more cerebral, doesn't talk a whole lot. He's a kind of he punches the clock every day and gives you consistent at-bats and consistent work. I love his demeanor. One of the things I like about all these guys is just their demeanor. They show that veteran, mature demeanor in the locker room, in the cages, out on the field. A lot of these guys that have come in out of the portal have done a great job of not only working hard, but also having the winning makeup and the winning mindsets that we're looking for.
Monte, you mentioned situationally you'd like to see this team improve and maybe be a little bit more consistent. What have you seen from your team in terms of situationally, and is it just the at-bat, the 2-strike approach? What is about it that's maybe been up and down or inconsistent?
Well, I think, again, we tend to make too much of it. People are always going to try to look at things that you're not doing well. Well, the strikeout numbers are, fairly high. Well, our walk numbers are fairly high. Well, how do you walk? Look at how many times, when you look at the walk, that means you've seen bare minimum of 4 pitches. A lot of times when our guys walk, they're seeing 6, 7, 8 pitches. Well, when you see 6, 7, 8 pitches, what can also happen, right? You can strike out some. Teams that walk tend to strike out. When you look at some of the great teams when it comes to high walk numbers, your Florida States with Mike Martin, back in those days, I know what it was like to pitch to those teams. Those teams would walk a ton. They'd also strike out a good bit. So, you got to give something to get something. I think that's the important thing to understand. Like, at the end of the day, the strike zone is the strike zone. We don't want to swing out of the strike zone, okay? I've charted swing decisions every year I've been a head coach, okay? In one fall, okay, we had 5 hits on balls, okay? So when you start talking about the strike zone and what we look for our guys to do, we want to stay in the strike zone. And if that means we take borderline pitches that are called strikes, so be it. I don't want our guys swinging out of the strike zone. So that being said, sometimes when you get with runners in scoring position, what do guys tend to do? Once the mindset we got to do a better job of hitting with runners in scoring position, now all of a sudden they start swinging at everything. So there's a balance there, right? I think it's just about sticking to your approach. You get runners in scoring position, don't try to do too much. Use the whole field. Put good swings on strikes, and good things will happen. So I think, again, it's just about sticking to the process, believing in the guys, and not spending a ton of time talking about things that we struggle with. Talking about it is not going to get you anywhere. You got to work on it. We work on the things that we value and that we think are important in winning games, and we got to do that consistently and daily for guys to improve in those areas. So it's more about doing it than talking about it.
So you worked for Ray Tanner and you replaced Jack Leggett, and of course Jack, I guess, was around some when you were up there. So your experiences with those two, being a young coach, having contact with two Hall of Fame coaches, what'd you learn or take away from both that's kind of helped make you the coach you are today?
Well, I worked with Ray for 6 years, so I was with him every single day for 6 years. I don't know if you can have a better apprenticeship as a young assistant coach than working for Ray Tanner. First of all, he's probably the most competitive human being I've ever been in a dugout with. He lived and died with every pitch. He was incredibly fiery and intense and competitive. And I think his teams showed that, and they tend to take on the personality of the head coach. The teams that Ray coached were certainly like that. So I learned a lot about just competing every pitch. Something that I talk about even to this day, and I saw it firsthand as a young assistant working for Ray. Just how much he valued everything, how much he valued defense, base running, hitting for power, situational hitting. I mean, there was no stone that was not turned over when you worked for him that he didn't value. So, but he also had a very unique way to make everybody around him feel special and important to the process of winning games here. And he was also very simple. The things that were important to him with a baseball team, everybody knew them because he talked about them constantly, and it was simple enough for everybody to understand. So I think that was the beauty of Coach Tanner, was his simplicity, his intensity, and the fact that he made everybody feel important that worked for him. People loved working for Coach Tanner if you were on his staff, because he just made you feel like you were very important to that process. So I learned an awful lot from Ray, and it's amazing how much I didn't realize how much I had learned from him until I became a head coach. Once I became a head coach, I started to realize I was saying a lot of the same things that he said and doing a lot of the same things that he did. And it just, sometimes you don't appreciate it until you're no longer there. And I certainly appreciated it while I was here, but I appreciated it an awful lot even more when I became a head coach. I didn't know Coach Leggett quite as well, and didn't spend very much time with Coach Leggett. When I came in, the thing that stood out was just how disciplined his players were. My first year at Clemson, the discipline of the players, the work ethic of the players, how hard they practiced. That was apparent. When I got there, just implementing my system and the way that I did things, they had no problem doing it because of they had the ability to go out and really grind and work super, super hard. So that, those first couple of years of having Coach Leggett's players, you knew you had kids that were built to work and were built to compete. He did a great job of developing players. So, that was probably the thing that stood out to me coming into Clemson, was how disciplined the kids were, how important the classroom was to them, the weight room was to them, practicing hard, those types of things. He instilled a lot of great traits in his players that it made it easy to come in and coach those kids after he left.
Hey, Coach. I know earlier you talked about a lot of this experience on their team like McGillis, but I kind of want to focus on the young gun. Petrie's had a phenomenal start to the year, 12 for 26. What are we looking for this series in Clemson, and then as we move on to SEC play? Just,
Petrie's done a great job of, he has power, right? But he's also a really good hitter. And I think for Petrie, for Ethan, it's just continuing to understand that we need him to continue to be just a good hitter. He's come up with some huge two-strike hits. Last night, high leverage situation late in the game, first pitch breaking ball over the plate, he hits a sac fly to right field on the first pitch, right? He just has those team at-bats that really stand out to me and to the rest of his teammates. You usually don't see that as a freshman. A lot of times freshmen, they're just trying to do everything they can to stay in the lineup. And this guy's, having veteran type at-bats, already. So I think that's the key for him, is just don't try to do too much. Just be yourself. Keep doing what you're doing, because it's certainly working and you're helping us win games.
Any more questions?
Just curious, Coach, if someone would have told you a year ago that you'd be headed into this series, the Clemson-Carolina series, on the Carolina side, what would you have said?
I don't know. I mean, things change. I mean, I think ultimately, when everything happened, last year at the end of the year, I really had no idea where I would be and what I would be doing. Just to get this opportunity has been a blessing. It really has, to be able to come back to a place where it kind of all started. And I grew up 30 minutes from here. So just being able to come back and coach here, it's been awesome to be a part of this staff and work with these players. I certainly wouldn't have thought a year ago that I would be sitting here today, but it's worked out the way that it's worked out, and I'm just blessed to be here. I'm super happy to be here. It's been great.
Time for maybe one more question if anyone has one. All right. What you cooking tonight, morning?
No cooking tonight. Well, no, I am cooking tonight, so I got to go recruiting right now. So first day we can go out on the road. So it'll be a late night dinner. But I did lay out a steak tonight, so I'll have a steak tonight. Ribeye. I'm a ribeye guy. So I'll cook it when I get home.